Oh, greetings, YouTube. Oh, it's been a while. But a lot has happened. I have moved and I'm trying to get settled, but I am on the run again. But before I run, I want to get this video down. Prison affairs for those who don't want to sit through 26 chapters, even though if you have someone in the prison system, especially in Texas, or you have a loved one in the prison system, the book is very valuable. When I was writing the book, I wanted to give information and help just one woman. I said if my book just helped one woman, I would be content. And after going through these chapters and rereading this book some 14, almost 15 years later, who knew that the one woman I would help would be myself? Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. It has helped me so much rereading this book, looking back. It's like I was reading the book and I wasn't the main character, but being the main character of the book and looking back, it just was so enlightening. I'm so enlightened and I'm so blessed to have written it and be able to go back now and read it and now share it with everyone else. So who knew the one woman that this book would help would be yours truly. So to God be the glory. Praise God. So for this episode, I am just going to go over the whole book. I'm going to take my time and go through the whole book. For those who didn't want to sit through 26 chapters, this is going to be the Cliff Notes version of Prison Affairs. Prison Affairs started with my first letter from Tyrone. I moved into a new house. See how fate, to me that's fate. Out of all the houses I looked at, I chose that house. And that was the house that a letter from a Texas Department of Criminal Justice inmate would write to the former occupant. That letter has subsequently, me answering that letter, receiving that letter, has subsequently changed my life in ways that I would have never known. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My first letter, that's the first chapter, my first letter. And it's just Tyrone writing about his friend that he was missing. And I finally wrote him back, and we was writing back and forth and built a rapport between each other. And I started catching feelings for his sweet words and his attention and the writing. It was the writing. I don't even think it was him per se. It was the writing. It's a lot going into ink and paper. You have to realize you pouring out if you're being truthful or you're not playing games, you're pouring out yourself into letters. And I have to say it was very therapeutical, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with Tyrone. And we wrote back and forth, and by chapter 2 is He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not. That's when I got a letter, and it was prison inmate money slips in it. He wanted me to send him money, and I was like, oh man, I knew this couldn't be real. So we went back and forth about the money, and I was telling him I'm not his angel if he think I'm going to take care of him. But he assured me that that wasn't the case. We continued our rapport, and he got in trouble, and I wanted to talk to the unit about his case, and I couldn't talk to them because I wasn't on his list. So that's when I got put on his visiting list. Subsequently, we began to talk about being his legal wife, so I would have legal rights to discuss him and be with him and talk about him. So I agreed to be Tyrone's wife. we were going to get married by proxy. By proxy means that he's not there, but he signs a paper. He sends it in to the down. He sends it downtown. I go downtown. I have it sign my name and get somebody to stand in for him, and then we would be married. That's proxy. They don't do that anymore in Texas. They stopped that. I think they stopped that a lot of places, but I don't think you can get married anymore. So we were going to get married by proxy in Texas. Okay. So we're scheduled to get married. We're talking back and forth, back and forth. And then I was on the phone. The third chapter is I'm confused. I'm on the phone trying to get information about Tyrone, and I find out Tyrone has a 20 to 40 year sentence. This man told me he was getting out in 20 months. I was floored. You would think I would have ran then. And I almost ran. But I got a letter and subsequent letters that made me think and assured me that however long it took for Tyrone to get free, I would wait for him, and I loved him, and I would be there for him. So whether it was 20 years, 40 years, or what it was, I was riding for him, I was fighting for him, and I was willing to wait for him. Okay, when I'm confused, I came to tears with Tyrone's 40-year sentence. I looked online for how to marry an inmate. And next was my first visit. That's chapter 4. My first visit. I didn't know what Tyrone even looked like, but I was his fiance, scheduled to marry him by proxy before I even met him. I went to the prison, didn't know who he was when he came out. He tried to trick me. But eventually we had a very good visit. It was so nice. I was so happy to meet my future husband for the first time. And we had a really nice visit. And that led to more of the sexual letters, and the sexual content between our letters and when we spoke went up very high after our first visit. My sister Carlin wanted to ride with me so I wouldn't have to ride so far by myself, but she couldn't get on Tyrone's visiting list because you can only change your visiting list every 6 months. So he couldn't change his visiting list. He was put on she was put on a friend of Tyrone's, so she could come and visit at the same time, but she would be visiting him. So we did that, and that visit turned out right. But eventually Tyrone kept asking for more and more and more, and I couldn't take it. I didn't know if Tyrone was playing games or if it really was a black man's struggle in prison and this is what you have to go through. I was so confused, and that's when I started writing other men in prison. I became a pen pal. That's chapter 5, becoming a pen pal. I decided to become a pen pal because I wanted to talk to other men in prison so I can get the 411 on men in prison. And basically, I was trying to figure out if Tyrone was full of game or if I could rely on what he was saying and what I was feeling. I wanted to rely on what I was feeling and what he was saying. But the truth was staring me in the face. I was so used to the writing, and I was fed up with Tyrone and his bullshit. So I started writing 6 men that were in prison, becoming a pen pal. I had 6 pen pals, and I had Lawrence, that was Tyrone's cousin, fake cousin that I found out later. that Carlin visited. I start writing him as well. And so that led me to one of the pen pals whose name was Darnell. Out of all my pen pals, Darnell really struck a chord with me. He was so sweet, and he seemed to have so much concern for me, and I fell for him hard. Just like with Tyrone, I fell for Darnell. Darnell was scheduled up for parole pretty soon, so that sounded good to me, and he was so sweet. I couldn't resist. He was just so sweet, and I started to visit him, and I visited a few other of the pen pals, and I put their story in there because it's part of the story. In essence, it is a true story. So I put them in there because they were a part of the story. Out of all those pen pals, for some reason, Darnell just pulled on my heartstring, and I fell for him. And fell really hard. I'm not going to talk about all my prison pen pals. You can go back if you really want to see that. Here's about that. But my own prison ministry is chapter number 6. I had my own prison ministry with these men. I was writing weekly, daily, trying to keep up. I had folders to keep myself together. Chapter 7 is Lord, what have I gotten myself into? It was hard keeping up. I almost wrote one person with another person's name. I had to scratch it out. And then I got so much information from these men. And chapter 8 is called Keeping It Real. And that's the chapter where these men talk about me in prison. And I just put all that information, I just combined it into one chapter to give the reader a feel of prison and what goes on and how these men think and how these men feel. Chapter 9 is he wants to marry me. Okay, now Darnell wants to marry me. He knows all about Tyrone. Know I was scheduled to marry Tyrone. Now he wants to marry me. I said yes. Only thing is, I told him I was not marrying him by proxy. I was not marrying him in prison. We could wait till he get out. He was coming up for parole really soon, so there was no need for that. Chapter 10 is called What Y'all Niggas Doing. It's me going back and going over my pen pals, who I kept, who I lost, and what was going on with them. And chapter 11 is called Make It Plain. This is me and Darnell getting more closer and back with Tyrone. Tyrone enters back into the picture again, where it shows that how our rapport is still touch and go. He's still playing games. And also in this chapter, I got a letter from my last pen pal who never wrote me in the beginning. He started writing me, and we started a good rapport with him. His name was Carl. Okay, chapter 12 is called Can I Honestly Do This? This is the shortest chapter in the book, but it should have been the longest. This was me rethinking, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing? Am I crazy? And that's when I go to chapter 13, the women of PTO. The women of PTO let me know that I wasn't crazy. Chapter 13 introduces you to 7 women who had loved ones in jail and what they went through and how they dealt with it. Chapter 14 is Kiss and Exhale. Chapter 14 is when I went to the prison to visit Darnell, and we got to have a contact visit, and I got to kiss him for the first time. I was so excited. I feel excited right now just talking about it. I was so excited. And then chapter 15 is called Yeah, Baby. Chapter 15, a lot of good things happened in chapter 15. But the main thing was Tyrone said, the parole board said, yes, not Tyrone, I'm sorry, Darnell could come home. So, yeah, baby. Darnell was coming home, and Darnell decided he was coming home to Houston to be with me and the children, and instead of going to Dallas to be with his family. So that was awesome to me. I love that. Chapter 16 is called Severing the Ties That Bind. And that's when I tried to cut off so much of the pen pal writing back and forth. It was getting tedious. Darnell was tripping because I was visiting and writing other inmates, and he was scared that I was going to get involved with one of them. So that's what that's kind of about, trying to get my bearings and mostly making sure the book was closed with Tyrone so I could start waiting on my future husband, now Darnell, to come home. So that's when chapter 17 comes in, the countdown begins. This is all letters back and forth between me and Darnell about our relationship. These chapters are important just to give you a depth of what he was feeling, how I was feeling, what we were saying, what was going on. It's very important to the story. Chapter 18 is called Get Ready, Get Ready, Get Ready. That means we was getting closer and closer. More letters between us back and forth. Getting ready for him to come home. What we were going through, the anxiousness, the anxiety. This chapter is very good for people who have a loved one that's about to come home. Chapter 19 is 120 days or less. Okay, we're 120 days out. Darnell is getting antsy. He's freaking out on me. I'm starting to question the whole relationship again. It was very hard. He was held up because he was coming to Houston and he didn't live in Houston before. And it was just a lot. Then we go to chapter 20, still in the mix. I still kept in touch with Edward and Tyrone and Carl, and Tyrone is still trying to get me to see his point of view, and I'm not trying to hear it because all I could hear from him was game, game, game. But I still loved him. It was something about me that just couldn't let go. I still loved him. Oh, chapter 21, last but definitely not least. It was Carl. This is basically about Carl and the friendship I developed with him. He called me his soul. He was so cool. He would send me money to come visit. He would just send me money just to get my hair done or buy something for the kids. He had a trust fund or something, and he would just have people send me money all the time. I would send him money sometime too, $20 or $30 here or there. I send a few of my pen pals money just for GP. That's general principle, general purpose, just for nothing. I sent them some money. But Carl used to send me money, and he was just so sweet. He used to send me cards all the time. Edward sent me so many cards. Those pen pals were so sweet. People can be so sweet when they locked up. I'm telling you, this book will show you just how damn sweet people can be when they locked up. Oh my God. Chapter 22, the countdown continues. Oh, more letters back and forth between me and Darnell. We getting close. We gonna get home. We gonna get home. Finally, I can't take it no more. Chapter 23, Calgon, take me away. Oh, Darnell getting fed on me, going bad. I'm going bad on him. Still trying to visit, driving hundreds of miles to visit. That was taking his toll, couldn't visit. Darnell wasn't writing. I was getting fed up. This man ain't writing. He talking about he got too much to write for the classes he taking. I'm trying to be understanding, and it was just too much. Calgon finally took me away, and they let that man come home. I drove to pick him up in Huntsville. That was a happy day. Chapter 24 is called Daddy's Home. Oh my goodness. It was a lot. The sex game, and I'm going to say that first because that's the first thing that hit me when I looked down at the book. That's the chapter with the sex in it. But the sex game was not what I cracked it up to be in my head. But, I was trying to be patient. But still, Darnell was acting all funny and acting all moody. And he wouldn't talk. And every time I asked him something, he said, I don't know. And right off the bat, I was, no, I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling this at all. But I still tried to hang on because I loved him. And I was like, who being selfish? Me and him. That's chapter 25. Who's being selfish? I was like, am I being selfish or is he being selfish? But it didn't matter. We was both really just going crazy. And eventually, Darnell wound up moving out the halfway house. That's a long story. You have to read the book. And moved in with a girl he had just met at the Texas Workforce Commission. And he slept with her without a condom. And he had came home and slept with me too. It was a hot mess. I had to go. We had took AIDS tests. That's what I'm gonna tell you too. If you got a man in prison and he come home, y'all get tested before he come out. But it ain't gonna help if he go and sleep with somebody after he come out and then sleep with you. So I was all messed up about that. I had to take another AIDS test because he slept with somebody else and me. I was so hurt that he had did that. I knew we wasn't working out, and I was expecting him to go back to Dallas to his family, but I just didn't expect him to do it like that. And he fell out with me and my kids, and it was a hot mess. So I cried for a while. I was messed up behind that. I had waited all that time for him, and it showed me that it was sad, but it had to happen, and everything happened for a reason. And eventually I started to feel good. Chapter 26 is called Letting Go and Letting God. Bishop Jakes had something with letting go. He said he was the master of goodbye. And that kind of comforted me. And I kept getting emails and signs and stuff. I felt like God was sending me saying, let that go. Let that go and move on. So I took my lesson, which I thought I took my lesson, and I let it go. Eventually, I started writing Tyrone, and I went to visit Tyrone, and he comforted me, and I cried, and he cried, and in the epilogue of the book, it ends with a letter from Tyrone, my letter to Tyrone. And wouldn't you know it, I got back with Tyrone and was scheduled to be his wife again before the end of the book. That's why I'm saying if this book don't help nobody else, it helped me. Because to see that now, how Darnell was, just really a blip on the map, really, with my relationship with Tyrone. Tyrone was really the main focus the whole time. But the majority of the book is dedicated to my relationship with Darnell. And it just went to show, what could happen when these men come home. But still, I felt so in love with Tyrone that I was willing to risk it. Oh, sorry. Didn't have it on Do Not Disturb. I was willing to risk it and spend the rest of my life with Tyrone and hoping that what we dreamed and talked about and imagined would come to fruition once he came home. So that's how the book ended. I was now engaged to Tyrone, and the saga continues. On the next episode, I'm gonna come back and give an update from the end of the book until today. So stay tuned. I'm gonna come back with an update. All right. Smooches, that's my time, y'all. I gotta go. Peace.